There are certain mistakes in the world of power that you will never find printed in a law book. They're not written into constitutions, not mentioned in speeches about morality, and definitely not taught in classrooms. They don't come with alarms or warnings. They don't shout. They don't even require an enemy to swing a sword. All they need is your tolerance. Because the moment you let one wrong action slide just one, the moment you turn your head away from a small fracture in trust, in that exact second, the countdown to your downfall begins. This message isn't meant for people who want a pleasant life, filled with comfort and polite ideals. This is a message for the ones who want to build something that actually lasts, something that won't crumble the moment pressure hits. And here's the truth that most people are too soft to say out loud. Empires don't fall overnight. Companies don't collapse because of a single mistake. Strong men don't shatter because of one blow. Power dissolves slowly, silently, piece by piece. Eaten from the inside by betrayal, cowardice, flattery, and all the quiet behaviors we allow because we don't want to confront the people committing them. And if you don't see those cracks early, if you don't confront the behaviors that threaten your foundation, your downfall won't come from the enemies who stand against you. It will come from the ones standing beside you, the ones you trust, the ones you forgive too easily, the ones you defend even when your instincts scream at you. Today, we're going to reveal the 7 behaviors you must never tolerate from anyone. Not from coworkers, not from friends, not from partners, and definitely not from family. These 7 behaviors are silent poisons. They erode your reputation, they weaken your authority, and they ultimately destroy the life you're trying to build. If you're someone others listen to, if you're someone in a leadership position, or if you're simply someone who's trying to become harder to break, more strategic, and less manipulable, stay with me to the very end. Because ignoring even one of these 7 behaviors is enough to ruin everything. And before we begin, let me say this. If you hear something that hits a nerve, if a certain face pops into your mind, if a memory you've been avoiding suddenly becomes clear, don't run from it. That's your awareness waking up. And if that happens, hit the like button, subscribe, and share this message with someone who also needs to wake up. Because sometimes, survival isn't about strength. It's about clarity. Clarity about what must never be forgiven. Now, let's begin. 1. The first behavior: disappearing during crisis. People love to say that loyalty is measured over time. We've known each other for 10 years. He'd never turn on me. Machiavelli rejected that idea completely. He didn't measure loyalty in years. He measured it in storms. When the sky is clear, anyone can promise you the world. When money is flowing, when life is easy, when your position is strong, everyone wants to stand beside you. Everyone wants to be your friend. Everyone wants to congratulate you. But that loyalty is worthless. Because real loyalty, the only kind that matters, shows itself when everything starts to fall apart. Think back on your own life. Think about the moments when you failed, when you felt embarrassed, when you were struggling financially, emotionally, or socially. Who stood beside you then? More importantly, who didn't? You've met these people before. They're loudest when you're winning. They show up to eat your food, to drink your wine, to sit at your table, to take pictures for social media, as if they would die for you. But the moment your power slips, the second you fail, they evaporate. No texts, no calls, not even a message saying, "Are you okay?" Just silence. A silence so sharp it cuts through your perception of who they really were. But the strongest cut is what happens after you rise again. When you rebuild yourself, when you regain your position, when the fire settles and you come out stronger, those same people suddenly reappear. and they come with beautifully packaged excuses. I didn't know how to help. I had a lot going on. I wanted to reach out, but I didn't want to bother you. Don't believe a word of it. Machiavelli understood that nothing in human behavior speaks louder than silence during crisis. A person who abandons you once will abandon you again, and they will do it at the exact moment when you can least afford it. And if you forgive them out of weakness, if you let them back in because you miss the comfort, you're not just giving them another chance. You're sending a message to everyone else watching you. And believe me, people are always watching. You're telling the world, there are no consequences for betraying me. From that moment on, loyalty around you stops being loyalty. It becomes calculation. People start thinking, is he still powerful? Is he still worth standing next to? Is he still someone I benefit from staying loyal to? And once people start calculating your worth like that, you are no longer their leader. You become an option, a placeholder, someone who can be replaced the second the situation becomes inconvenient. You don't need 10 loyal people. You need one. One who doesn't disappear when the room gets dark. One who doesn't vanish when the noise dies down. One who stands beside you even when everyone else has stepped away. That one person is worth more than 100 fair-weather followers. Machiavelli warned that betrayal is not just emotional. It undermines the entire structure of your authority. When your followers see that people can abandon you without consequence, they stop believing you are untouchable. And the moment a leader stops being untouchable, he stops being a leader. No one stays loyal to a man they see left alone in the storm. And the one who abandoned you once, they will be the first to attack you when you're weak. Absence is not an accident. It is a statement. So when you call and no one answers, when you fall and no one reaches out, don't look for explanations. Don't beg for reasons. Just remember the faces. And when you rise again, never let those faces return to their old seats in your life. Because every time you forgive a betrayal like that, you rewrite the rules of your kingdom. You don't need to be loyal. Just return at the right time. That is not how power survives. That is how it rots from the inside out. There is nothing more dangerous to a kingdom, a company, a family, or a tribe than a coward sitting at the top. People think the greatest threat comes from enemies, conspirators, rebels, people who hate you. But Machiavelli understood something far more frightening. The fastest way to destroy any system is to put a man in charge who is terrified of his own power. Cowardice doesn't always look like fear. It's not shaking hands or trembling voices. Most cowards hide their fear behind beautifully polished words. They disguise it as prudence, as ethics, as thoughtfulness. They ask for more meetings, more discussions, more time to think. But underneath all that, there's only hesitation. Cowardice is the refusal to act when the situation demands decision. It's postponing what must be done now. It's constantly seeking agreement from everyone else because the leader himself is afraid of bearing responsibility. This type of leader doesn't just weaken himself. He infects everyone under him. His fear spreads like a sickness, slow, invisible, corrosive. Imagine being a soldier on the battlefield. The enemy is closing in. You look up to your commander, and what do you see? Not strength, not certainty, but hesitation, doubt. His eyes scanning for anyone to make the decision for him. Would you still trust him? Or would you immediately start thinking about your own survival? That's how kingdoms fall, not from the enemy's sword, but from the leader's fear. Machiavelli understood something most modern people don't want to admit. A leader is not required to be perfect, but he is required to act. Leadership isn't about waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan. Leadership is acting in the midst of chaos, doubt, and incomplete information. Because there is no such thing as certainty when making big decisions. People don't follow the leader who knows everything. They follow the leader who moves when everyone else is frozen. A powerful leader says, "Move forward." Not because he is fearless, but because he understands what happens if he hesitates. If he hesitates, the entire system collapses. Some people pretend to be moral simply because they're afraid to take action. They'll talk about peace, about ethics, about moderation. But you can see it if you look close enough. They're scared of making a difficult decision. They know what needs to be done, but they don't want to be the one who does it. And here's the truth. A leader who avoids responsibility isn't just harmless. He is dangerous. He creates confusion. He creates doubt. He makes every person under him feel like they are standing on unstable ground. A true leader doesn't hide behind committees. He doesn't bury himself in endless planning discussions. He doesn't wait for other people to tell him which direction to go. He understands that the world is always shifting, always uncertain, and that the only thing preserving his authority is his ability to act before others do. If you want to hold on to your position at work, in your family, in life, you must learn to act first and explain later. You can fix a decision if it's wrong, but you cannot fix hesitation. People may respect a ruthless leader, but they despise a leader who doesn't have the courage to lead. Now let's move to another danger that Machiavelli feared even more than enemies or cowards: flatterers. 2. Flattery, the sweetest poison. There's a specific type of person you'll meet as you rise in life. They never disagree with you. They always smile. They always tell you your ideas are brilliant. They always say, "You're right," even when you're clearly wrong. These people are not harmless. They are poison wrapped in silk. Machiavelli wasn't afraid of the people who opposed him. He feared the ones who stood behind him wearing a smile, because enemies sharpen your mind, but flatterers soften it. Flattery corrupts slowly. It infects your ability to judge people. It erodes your internal compass. It replaces truth with ego. And once you become dependent on praise, you lose the one thing no leader can survive without: honest feedback. The greatest danger with flatterers is simple. They don't care about you. They care about your throne. They care about staying close to power. They care about benefiting from your success. They're not loyal to your mission. They're not loyal to your principles. They're loyal only to the opportunities they think you can provide. And when your strength fades, when your influence cracks, these same people who praised you will be the first to abandon you. They will run with the same enthusiasm they once used to flatter you. You think you're being supported, but you're actually surrounded by mirrors. You see reflections of yourself everywhere, reflections that distort reality. Your ego grows, your judgment weakens, and every voice that might have saved you becomes quieter and quieter, drowned out by the applause that feels so good, but destroys you in the end. A true ally isn't always comforting. True loyalty can feel uncomfortable. A real advisor will tell you you're wrong, even when the entire room is afraid. They don't fear losing your approval. They fear watching you fall. But a flatterer? They want you blind. They want you confident in your illusions. They want you distracted by praise while danger grows in the shadows. Machiavelli made one thing clear: never confuse a flatterer with a loyal companion. A loyal companion may cause discomfort, may challenge you, may frustrate you, but they will never let you destroy yourself. A flatterer, on the other hand, will help you climb the stairs of your own downfall, smiling the entire time. So ask yourself, who in your life always agrees with you? Who has never challenged you? Who compliments you at the exact moment you need clarity, not praise? That's not an ally. That's not a friend. That's a parasite feeding on your pride. A compliment delivered at the wrong moment is far more dangerous than criticism. Criticism can sharpen you, but flattery blinds you. And nothing destroys a leader faster than blindness. As a leader, as someone who wants to grow stronger, more capable, more respected, you must develop the strength to hear the truth and the sharp vision to detect the sweetest lies. Now let's move to the next behavior that Machiavelli believed could collapse an entire empire overnight: public defiance. But we'll dive deep into that in the next section. Power is not held together by laws, weapons, or titles. Power is held together by belief, by the perception that the one in charge is not to be questioned, not to be mocked, not to be challenged publicly. That belief is fragile, but it is everything. And sometimes, all it takes to shatter it is one person, one voice, one moment of public defiance. A single mocking laugh in front of a crowd, a joke at your expense, a bold question that undermines your authority, spoken loudly enough for others to hear. That is the spark. That is the knife. That is the moment your power takes its first cut. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that a public challenge doesn't need to overthrow you. It only needs to plant doubt. If one person dares to speak out, others start thinking, if he can do it, why can't I? And once that seed of doubt enters the minds of those watching, they start testing you. Not with swords, not with rebellion, but with small acts of disrespect. Someone ignores your instructions. Someone questions your decision. Someone delays something you ordered, all to see what you will do. And here's the tragic mistake many leaders make. They laugh it off. They tolerate it. They pretend it didn't happen because they don't want to look insecure or angry. But that silence, that tolerance, is the true loss of power. Power doesn't require cruelty, but it requires consequences. Because people aren't listening to what you say. They're watching how you react. Let someone challenge you once in front of others. Let that challenge go unanswered. And you've just handed them the most dangerous weapon in politics: precedent. A precedent says, it's safe to defy him. He won't respond. He won't protect his authority. And once that belief spreads, your leadership isn't leadership anymore, it's a performance. You're no longer the director of the play. You're an actor on the stage, reacting to others, losing control piece by piece, while people start treating your position as something that can be taken, debated, or replaced. Some people will disguise their defiance under the banner of morality. They'll claim they're only speaking out for the good of the group, or for the sake of truth, or to improve things. But make no mistake, public moralizing is almost always a silent campaign for your throne. Anyone who challenges your authority publicly, especially under the mask of virtue, is signaling something very simple. I believe I could lead better than you. Don't get distracted by their eloquence. Don't get fooled by their soft tone. They're not after improvement. They're after your place. Machiavelli warned that a leader must never let morality become the rope that tightens around his neck. Because the moment you allow emotional arguments to shape how your authority functions, you've surrendered real power. Now anyone who can put on a righteous face can challenge you. And here's the cruel trap. If you respond strongly, you're called a tyrant. If you stay silent, you look weak and guilty. You're punished either way. That's why Machiavelli insisted on one rule. Public defiance must always be addressed. Not necessarily through anger, not necessarily through violence, but decisively, clearly, without apology. Because the crowd isn't listening to your explanations. They're evaluating your strength. A leader who allows public disrespect invites more of it. A leader who addresses it early prevents a rebellion later. You don't need to punish people for private disagreement. You don't need to control every opinion, but you cannot allow attacks on your authority to happen under the spotlight. Because once it happens once, it will happen again. Now let's step into a different kind of poison, one that destroys not from public attacks, but from the quiet withdrawal of loyalty. Ingratitude. 4. Ingratitude. The quietest form of betrayal. Your enemy is not always the one who openly opposes you. Sometimes your real enemy is the one you once lifted up, the one you helped, supported, believed in. You'd think generosity would inspire loyalty. You'd think saving someone would bind them to you. But Machiavelli saw the opposite happen over and over. Those you help the most often betray you the fastest. Why? Because ingratitude isn't forgetting a favor. It's a declaration, a statement. It means, what you did for me no longer matters. I owe you nothing. You're not useful to me anymore. Ungrateful people don't feel guilt. They feel entitlement. They think your kindness was something they deserved. And once you stop giving, they don't remain neutral. They become resentful. They see your generosity as weakness. They see your forgiveness as softness. And when your position shakes even slightly, they run not silently, but strategically. They whisper to your enemies, I know him. He helped me once. I know where he's vulnerable. I know how his mind works. I know exactly how to strike him. And the most painful part? You gave them the access that now enables them to hurt you. You opened the door. You trusted them. You built them up. And they grew tall enough to reach the knife. Machiavelli didn't tell us to stop being generous, but he gave a strict warning. Never invest in barren ground. Never give mercy to someone who lacks gratitude, integrity, or principle. Mercy is a tool that builds allies when used wisely. But when you offer it to the wrong person, you're feeding someone who will one day watch you starve. Ungrateful people have no loyalty. Not to you, not to the truth, not even to themselves. They're loyal to gain, and gain alone. You'll see them clearly if you watch closely. When you're winning, they swarm around you. When you're losing, they vanish. When you rise again, they return with the same smile, the same voice, but with sharper intentions. Machiavelli advised, let gratitude be a test, not a hope. If someone fails the test once, never test them again. Ungrateful people don't change, they just evolve their strategies. Ask yourself, what happens when you stop giving? Do they stay close, or do they disappear? Do they still respect you, or do they grow distant? If your value is based on what you provide, not who you are not dealing with a loyal person. You're dealing with a parasite. A leader who tolerates ingratitude destroys his own foundation. Because the ones he raised up know his weaknesses. They know he forgives easily. They know where the cracks are, and they will use that knowledge not to protect him, but to end him. Never forget, gratitude is voluntary, but ingratitude must be punished. Forgive a traitor once, and the whole world learns that treason isn't dangerous, only failing is. In the next section, we'll dive into one of the most misunderstood threats of all, ambition without loyalty, a force that quietly produces challengers disguised as allies. Ambition by itself is not evil. In fact, Machiavelli believed ambition is the force that builds entire civilizations. It drives men to rise above mediocrity, to push past their limits, to reject the role fate tried to assign them. Ambition creates warriors, kings, innovators, leaders. But ambition without loyalty? That is something entirely different. That is a silent blade aimed right at the heart of power. A man with ambition and no loyalty is not tied to anyone. Not to you, not to the mission, not to the group. He belongs only to himself, and that makes him unpredictable, dangerous. This person doesn't rebel openly. He doesn't shout. He doesn't cause trouble. In fact, he may be one of the most impressive people in the room. He performs well. He speaks well. He impresses every faction. He avoids conflict. He stays neutral at all the right moments. On the surface, he seems like an ideal ally, polished, intelligent, respected. But neutrality is his mask. Behind it is a man who is studying you, watching you, recording every mistake, every hesitation, every weakness you reveal. He is patient. He is calculating, and he is waiting for the exact moment when the throne starts to tremble. These types of men don't want to support the throne. They want to replace it. They don't want to serve power. They want to become power. If you're in a position of authority, whether at work, in a business, in a community, or even within your social group, you must learn to recognize these ambitious but uncommitted individuals early. Because once they grow strong, once they gain influence, once they slip beyond your ability to control them, they become a threat to your entire structure. Machiavelli gave only two options when dealing with such people. Option 1. Bind them tightly to your destiny. Tie their future to yours so completely that if you fall, they fall. Give them responsibility, investment, and reasons to stay loyal. Option 2. Remove them before they rise too high, because an ambitious man with no ties and no fear is a walking rebellion waiting for the right moment. These men are masters of subtlety. They rarely show their hand. They never speak too loudly. They avoid attention when it could expose their intentions. And because they're so polished, many leaders mistake them for harmless. But the truth is much darker. Their harmlessness is their camouflage. Their politeness is their shield. Their neutrality is their knife. Watch their behavior when real commitment is required. They'll avoid choosing sides. They'll keep options open. They'll never fully attach themselves to you, even if they benefit greatly from your leadership. They accept your help, your guidance, your opportunities, but they never give their loyalty in return. You'll see an interesting pattern with them. They reject praise in public, so they appear humble. But privately, they crave validation and recognition. They avoid making enemies. Yet they always show up the moment power is shifting hands. These men are shadows, silent, patient, persistent. And shadows don't disappear. They follow. Machiavelli taught that ambitious men should never be allowed to grow without being anchored. If you cannot bind them with loyalty, interest, fear, or shared destiny, then you must never allow them to rise to a level where they can challenge you. Skill can blind you. Talent can seduce you. But brilliance without loyalty is a threat, not an asset. If you want to test someone, ask yourself one simple question. Will this person still stand with me if I lose power? If your answer is, I'm not sure, then you already have your answer. Uncertain loyalty is no loyalty at all. And when the day comes, because it always does, when your authority shakes even a little, this person will not defend you. He won't stay silent. He will rise. He will present himself as the new solution, the better alternative, the reasonable choice to replace you. And here's what makes him so dangerous. He won't take your throne with noise. He won't take it by force. He'll take it quietly, by simply stepping into the role that everyone already sees him preparing for. Power is rarely stolen with violence anymore. Today, it is stolen with positioning. If you've ever met someone like this, charming but unreadable, talented but non-committal, present yet never truly on your side, You're not imagining it. You're detecting ambition that isn't attached to you, and if you don't act, it will eventually rise against you. Now let's talk about the final, most deceptive behavior, one of the most ancient tools of power, using morality as a weapon. 5. Morality as a weapon. Some people never yell, they never rebel, they never openly oppose you, and yet they manage to bring down the strongest leaders not with violence, but with the softest weapon of all, morality. Machiavelli saw this long before it became common. He understood that when morality is used as a tool against power, it stops being about integrity. It becomes a disguise, a mask for ambition. There are people who march under the banner of justice. They speak beautifully about transparency, compassion, and ethics. They claim to care about what's right. But if you look closely, their concern isn't about truth. It's about who sits on the throne. Why? Because moral attacks do something very dangerous. They force the leader to defend his character instead of exercising his authority. That is the trap. A moral challenger doesn't need to overthrow you. He only needs to make people wonder, is he really a good man? Should someone else be in charge? They don't want answers. They want doubt. Machiavelli warned that once a leader is dragged into explaining himself, justifying his decisions, he has already lost ground. People don't want a leader who must defend his worth. They want a leader whose worth is unquestionable. But moral manipulators know society prefers nice over effective. So they weaponize ethics to weaken power. They create impossible ideals. Then they condemn you for failing to meet them. They call you heartless, cold, unfair, uncaring. And here's the trick. If you respond strongly, you look tyrannical. If you stay silent, you look guilty. You lose either way. This is why Machiavelli insisted. Never allow morality to gain power over your authority. Never let the crowd believe that emotional speeches can force you to surrender your position. Because the moment they think emotion can overrule leadership, anyone who can pretend to be virtuous can replace you. Once you let one moral challenger go unchallenged, more will follow. They study the script. They learn that all they need to attack power is passion, not truth. Real morality is silent. Fake morality always needs an audience. The truly ethical person will speak to you in private. The fake moralist performs in public. They don't want resolution. They want applause. If you tolerate them, your throne becomes a stage for someone else's performance. In the next part, the final part, we will bring everything together. We'll examine how these 7 behaviors quietly rot power from within, and what Machiavelli said every leader must do to stay unshakable. We've spent this entire journey uncovering the 7 behaviors that Machiavelli warned no leader, no builder, no creator, no man of ambition should ever tolerate. And the reason is not simply because these behaviors are rude, disrespectful, or annoying. The true danger lies in the fact that these behaviors destroy power quietly. They do not strike like lightning. They behave like erosion, slow, subtle, almost invisible, until one day the ground beneath your feet gives way, and you realize the collapse began long before you noticed. To truly understand power, you must understand these 7 behaviors not just intellectually, but instinctively. Because once you see them clearly, you'll start recognizing them everywhere at work, in your circle, in relationships, in alliances, and sometimes even in your own reflection. Let's walk through them again, but this time from the perspective of someone who refuses to be blindsided. First, betrayal during crisis. Loyalty shown in peaceful times is a performance. Loyalty shown when everything is burning is the truth. When the storm hits and people vanish without a message, without a gesture, without the slightest concern that silence is not an accident. It is a choice. It is their declaration that your survival is not worth their effort. And if you take them back afterward, if you let excuses soften you, you teach everyone else a rule far more powerful than any speech you could give. You can abandon me, and I will still allow you to return. Once that message spreads, loyalty becomes conditional. It becomes calculation, and the throne you sit on begins cracking from within. Second, cowardice in leadership. Organizations, families, nations, these things rarely collapse because of enemies. They collapse because of hesitation. A leader who fears his own power radiates uncertainty downward. Every team takes its emotional cues from the person at the top. If the leader hesitates, everyone hesitates. If the leader doubts, everyone doubts. A leader doesn't need perfect answers. He needs the courage to act. Machiavelli knew that waiting for certainty is the luxury of the powerless. The powerful must move even when the path ahead is blurred. Because in moments of crisis, the one who steps forward becomes the one who is followed, even if his plan is imperfect. Third, flattery disguised as loyalty. There is no poison sweeter than flattery. The critic sharpens you. The rival awakens you. But the flatterer numbs you. He tells you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. He mirrors your ego back at you until you no longer see danger. He surrounds you with comfort, not clarity. And the moment your power weakens, he will evaporate. Because he was never loyal to you, only to the advantages you provided. A true ally might frustrate you, might challenge you, might tell you you're wrong, but they will never watch you walk toward self-destruction. The flatterer, however, will applaud you all the way to the edge of the cliff. Fourth, public challenges to authority. Power is sustained by belief, the belief that you are not someone to be questioned lightly. A single joke at your expense, a single mocking laugh, a single public challenge is enough to fracture that belief. If one person can challenge you publicly without consequence, others start asking, if he can do it, why can't I? And that is the beginning of the end. The challenge itself isn't what destroys you. It's the precedent. A leader who lets disrespect slide in front of an audience isn't being calm or mature. He is giving his rivals the blueprint for how to weaken him. Machiavelli emphasized that public defiance must be addressed, not out of ego, but out of necessity. A kingdom cannot function when its leader becomes a public playground for criticism. Fifth, ingratitude after mercy. Few things cut deeper than the betrayal of someone you once raised up. You help them, you protect them, you open doors they could never open alone. And when you fall, they vanish, sometimes even turning against you. Why? Because the ungrateful feel entitled to your kindness. Your help becomes something they believe they deserved. And when your status drops, so does their sense of obligation toward you. Machiavelli knew this pattern too well. He taught, never plant seeds on barren soil. Giving mercy to the wrong person does not create loyalty, it creates entitlement. And when the ungrateful gain strength, they often use that very strength against the hand that once supported them. Sixth, ambition without loyalty. There is nothing more dangerous than a brilliantly capable person whose loyalty belongs to no one. These individuals impress everyone. They perform flawlessly. They avoid conflict. They stay neutral. But neutrality is a mask. Beneath it is someone studying you, tracking your weaknesses, waiting patiently for the right moment. Their goal is not to assist the throne. It is to replace it. Machiavelli offered only two strategies. Either bind them tightly to your destiny, or remove them before they rise beyond your control. Because a person who is ambitious but unattached to you becomes a quiet threat, calm, polite, subtle, but ready to ascend the moment your power tilts even slightly. 7th, morality used as a weapon. Some opponents do not need violence or conspiracy. They need only a stage. They wrap themselves in the cloak of moral superiority, positioning themselves as the virtuous challenger, the voice of justice, the conscience of the group. They are not interested in truth. They are interested in leverage. If you respond strongly, you look tyrannical. If you remain silent, you appear guilty. This is the trap. They force you to defend your goodness rather than exercise your authority. Machiavelli warned that a leader must never allow emotional theater to dictate his decisions. Because once people believe that morality, not competence, determines who should rule, anyone who can perform empathy or outrage convincingly can challenge your authority. But understanding these 7 behaviors is not enough. The real question is this: what happens when you tolerate them? Every time you forgive betrayal, every time you allow hesitation, every time you indulge in flattery, every time you ignore a public challenge, every time you reward ingratitude, every time you empower the ambitious but unloyal, every time you let moral theater dictate your actions, you are not just damaging yourself. You are rewriting the rules of your entire system. You are teaching everyone around you how to treat you. If you forgive disloyalty, you teach others that loyalty is optional. If you tolerate cowardice, you teach others that hesitation is acceptable. If you reward flattery, you teach others that truth is unwelcome. If you ignore public disrespect, you teach others that your authority can be tested. If you show endless mercy to the ungrateful, you teach others that exploiting you is safe. If you give power to the ambitious but disloyal, you teach others that loyalty is irrelevant. If you let moral manipulators shame you, you teach others that your throne can be conquered through performance. And when the moment comes for you to take a stand, when you finally choose to enforce boundaries, you may discover you are standing alone. Not because people hated you, not because you were unworthy, but because they learned from your actions that you would never act. They learned that you tolerate everything, and, in Machiavelli's world, and in ours, tolerance is often interpreted as weakness. Empires do not crumble from external attacks first. They crumble from the internal rot created by behaviors the leader refuses to confront. Machiavelli never preached cruelty. What he taught was clarity, ruthless clarity. The clarity to see people as they are, not as you want them to be. The clarity to set boundaries early, so you don't have to deliver punishments later. The clarity to protect your position before someone else decides they deserve it more. If you're still here, watching until the end, it says something about you. You're not looking for comfort. You're looking for truth. You want the kind of strength that cannot be overthrown. You want to understand human nature so deeply that nothing catches you off guard again. Hit that subscribe button because we're only getting started. We're going to keep revealing the masks people wear, the strategies they use, and the psychological games that weaken strong men. And we're going to build you into someone who sees every angle, every intention, every manipulation, and stands firm in a world that respects strength far more than kindness. This is the path to becoming untouchable, not through cruelty, but through vision, through clarity, through understanding what must never be tolerated. That is the true foundation of power.